You can call us a data organization itself. A data nation, a data organization. Nowhere in the world can you have such diverse data sets. Nowhere in the world do you have such data collecting points. Whatever is needed for DPDP compliance, 85% is already there in the Act. That needs to be complied with. So there is where I think the issue arises that, there is a lot of misinformation in the industry, in the market about the Act, a lot of misinterpretation which is perpetuated. So companies are actually stepping back. That, before we make such heavy investments, let's step back and see what's going to happen. Let's step back and see what the rules say. Let's step back. So that's exactly what is happening. When ideally they're supposed to comply, the rules are going to tell you nothing further. Your liabilities have begun from the day the Act was enacted. Primarily, the kind of profiling of individuals, profiling of a nation, profiling of industries that happens due to data and the collection of that data. And that is something which is very, very crucial from a geopolitical perspective.
Hello and welcome to The Shift, powered by AT Insights. It's a platform where we sit with industry leaders and experts to deliberate key issues that change the world around us. And with me today is a very special guest, Advocate Puneet Bhasin, who's a cyber law expert and an advisor to the United Nations. Advocate Bhasin, welcome to AT Insights.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So let's start off by your work with the UN. You work very closely with the UN on digital public goods. As we move towards a world where, shared data is emphasized on, how do you make sure that privacy laws are not sidelined?
Shared data, the problem is a lot of sharing of data in a very unregulated format. Now, that is exactly where I think very much the need of the hour is the domestic laws in that space, which we already do have the Indian Data Protection Act, which is there. And it's already enacted. Organizations are supposed to start complying with it. That is there from this perspective, especially considering the fact that we are the biggest data points. Our country has the largest population. You can call us a data organization itself. A data nation, a data organization. Nowhere in the world can you have such diverse data sets. Nowhere in the world do you have such data collecting points. So to that extent, yes, a domestic enactment of law is extremely important to ensure that foreign entities, corporates do not end up misusing our data. Cyber criminals do not misuse that data. And from a global perspective, as what you were talking about, the United Nations Digital Public Goods Alliance. Now, domestically, each country can have their laws. But you need to understand countries like us, which are the biggest data nation, data points, we are at a risk of our data misuse because we have too much of data flowing everywhere.
Right.
Now, different nations which are not that data rich, they are the ones who are capitalizing on the data. So they definitely would want an unregulated space. They wouldn't want data laws, and we as a nation would want those data laws. Considering that perspective, yes, we are among the few nations in the world that actually has a Data Protection Act. So a lot of advanced countries, so-called advanced countries in today's times, do not have those laws. So we have that. Now, if we look at the global scenario, there are multiple countries unregulated tapping into our Indian data. We want the laws, they don't want the laws. Now comes the entire change that, different countries, everybody having different expectations, wanting to monetize on data.
Right.
So there a global framework, at least it's not something that can be binding upon every organization, but yes, the initiative of the Digital Public Goods Alliance is primarily a common framework if adhered upon, applied to. An organization can say that, okay, I have complied with these particular privacy frameworks, which are suitable from a global standard, like whichever nation has laws, we are combining everything together to give it that kind of a flavor. And it can be said then, or the organization upon being compliant can actually go ahead and say that, okay, I am compliant with this particular standard. So this initiative has been there of the United Nations, and it's a group initiative of a couple of countries also in that. And there are 9 experts from across the globe are there. I represent India in that. And the other 8 experts representing different other countries who are key stakeholders with respect to data. And very, very soon it's going to be rolled out.
Interesting. Now, let's pick on the DPDP Act. It's come in, and what's the real challenge there? Are there common mistakes that you see from your perspective that government departments and corporates both make while, they are trying to integrate or adapt to this act?
So the biggest thing that I see, it's very interesting that, most events or wherever I go, almost every other organization, individual who comes up and says, ma'am, we've read your book and we have it in our office. Like, great, you have it in the office. Have you started the compliance? We are waiting for the rules. Now, who has told you that? So, I feel happy you have the book, but I am quite unhappy that you have not started taking the steps enunciated in the book in order to comply.
Right.
Now, why is that happening? That there is this entire myth created that, till the rules don't come, you don't need to comply. Now, what are those DPDP rules going to tell you? They're going to talk about how the Data Protection Authority is going to be formed, about the consent manager process. Now, until and unless you are wanting to become a consent manager yourself as an organization, it really doesn't matter.
Right.
Whatever is needed for DPDP compliance, 85% is already there in the Act. That needs to be complied with. So, there is where I think the issue arises that, there is a lot of misinformation in the industry, in the market about the Act. A lot of misinterpretation which is perpetuated. And to a great extent, I'll just give you a simple example that there was this organization, and I know the CFO very well personally. So one fine day he gave me a call. So I have also discussed this case just in a couple of events prior also, when this had just happened at that time. So he gave me a call and he said, what is this DPDP Act compliance? He's a CFO. He doesn't know about it so much. No, see, the legal team and the InfoSec team of our company have put it up, and they're talking about a 1.5 crore compliance budget. So I said, okay. So they received this quote from some consulting companies, 1.5 to 2 crores of compliance budget per year.
Okay.
So he said, okay, before I sign off on something like this, I really needed to understand what is this, and is it genuinely something proportionate for what we are talking about? And when I saw it, extreme confidentiality, he did share the proposal and the details with me, and I was shocked. The Act has, let's say, given 10 points a company needs to comply with. Those 10 points, compliance is not that expensive. Believe me, it's not that expensive.
Okay.
But you have a large number of organizations having 150 pointer checklist. Who has given you that syllabus? That is the big question mark. So what happens is industry, organizations, companies, they all get deterred. That, oh my God, we need to put in so much money, then let us just wait for everything to be confirmed by the government. Let us think what the rules say, because suddenly we are talking of a very different figure of money, just like simply the way he called up. And he asked me, oh, your organization also does DPDP compliance. What would the budget for our organization be? And for a whole 5 to 6 year duration, considering his nature of business, risk, everything, it was less than 50%. Less than 50%.
Okay. Interesting.
So what was there going to be their annual budget? Over 4 years, that annual budget's 50% is what was their compliance budget for 4 years. So, creating that kind of, हम जो हिंदी में कहावत बोलते हैं ना, एक हवा बना दो. तो लोगों को लगेगा अरे इतना कुछ करना है, इतना करना है. अभी what's happening is it's backfiring on a lot of consulting companies. Because when they have pitched it up as something so big and so much to be done and so expensive, the number of organizations stepping up to do it are lesser. Most other organizations are stepping back. So, in a way, I would say the entire thing of which may have worked in tax laws, which worked in other things, is not actually that trick of marketing is not working in DPDP this time. So companies are actually stepping back that, before we make such heavy investments, let's step back and see what's going to happen. Let's step back and see what the rules say. Let's step back. So that's exactly what is happening. When ideally they're supposed to comply, the rules are going to tell you nothing further. Your liabilities have begun from the day the Act was enacted.
Right.
The board is formed. From that day onwards, the hearing of the complaints start. So this period is not like a null period. This is a period for you to start complying, for you to display everything.
It's active.
So I would just say it's a marketing gone wrong, which may have worked in other sectors. Unfortunately for DPDP, for a large number of consulting companies, this entire modus of marketing is backfired.
Okay, interesting. Now, Advocate Bhasin, AI is being integrated into sensitive areas like healthcare, identification, and India is building a strong ecosystem for that.
Mm-hmm.
From your standpoint, from a strictly legal standpoint, what is it that developers and data teams often overlook?
See, in artificial intelligence, from the international law perspective itself, there is a very, very clear guideline that the liability of the program, let's say if something goes wrong because of the artificial intelligence, the liability lies with the developer or the organization which has taken the entire rights of the development, both together combined. So that depends upon the contractual obligations. So from a legal standpoint, that is very, very clear. Some kind of, a hygiene that needs to be worked on more.
Okay.
I do understand this from a developer perspective also, that, till it doesn't happen, it is difficult for them to start imagining all the eventualities. So a lot of these codes and programs are actually on, I would say, they're mostly on a testing mode. Even if it's rolled out, believe me, it's testing, because
Right.
even the developer doesn't know where the code can go wrong.
Right. Interesting. Now, Advocate Bhasin, AI is an international conversation. You are someone who's privy to these global conversations. Given that there are so many different countries, so many different laws, do you think data can flow freely and fairly across borders?
Honestly, if you have to ask me, at this point of time, it is flowing very, very freely. It should not be.
Okay.
Ideally, it should not be. It's not something which is good for our nation, because mostly it is our data that's flowing out. There isn't enough data flowing in. There's more data flowing out.
Okay.
So a lot of our companies which are monetizing on our data without us realizing. So a lot of free platforms which are being offered to Indians. Everything that's free. There's so much of tech being offered for free, so many social media applications, and all of them are monetizing on data. So there is a problem. There is too much of free which is happening, and it's actually at a cost of our individuals, our Indian nationals. There is a cost to it. So though it is understood or not, there is an associated cost. So yes, a very strong regulation is needed. That is exactly where the DPDP Act comes in, that, that complete free data की दुनिया आओ हमारा डेटा ले लो जो चाहो कर लो, वो सिचुएशन जो है चलनी नहीं चाहिए आगे.
Need to draw a line there.
There has to be a line drawn. There has to be a control on that. That is definitely there. With respect to other parts of the world, the EU already had the GDPR. The other countries already are very restrictive in their data flow.
Right.
So in that situation, we are the ones at risk, really. So these kind of laws and very stringent laws are necessary. And I think, I presume in near future also, cyber warfare was the kind of warfare we were talking about, and the future of warfare further may be data warfare. And that's exactly where it would end up panning out. So yes, there wouldn't be free flow of data.
Right.
If you're looking years down the line now, we are looking at restricted data. We are looking at restricted data flow and data sovereignty to a great extent. Because when we are talking of data warfare, data sovereignty is something which becomes very, very important. Now, why do I say data warfare? Primarily, the kind of profiling of individuals, profiling of a nation, profiling of industries that happens due to data and the collection of that data. And that is something which is very, very crucial from a geopolitical perspective. And it can be misused to a great extent from a geopolitical perspective.
Absolutely.
So a warfare is not going to be independent from data warfare. It's probably going to be a combined sync of the two. We have already seen that in the instances that are already happening around us globally. So it's going to be a combined effort of both these things going together in a warfare. So data security, data protection, all of this, not just from an individual level, but from an economic level, all over the country are going to be very important.
It's all the more important. Interesting. Now, Advocate Bhasin, do you think the legal bit of it, law, should be built into the tech? Because right now it's been seen as something that's, ushering in only when things go south. So what are your thoughts on that?
I will just tell you the general mindset in our country itself. We don't want to do wrong to anybody. You will not come across an individual who says, I want to profit at your loss. I want to profit at your cost. We are not a capitalist economy as yet. We still have that whole socialist concept. And the reason we have that is because of the inherent, ingrained Indian thought process. Karma. हम करेंगे ही नहीं ऐसा. So the misuse of data, misuse of things happening from within the country to capitalize and, cause loss to another person is less. I don't say there isn't crime rate in our country, but we are not talking about business thriving on something like that, whereas a lot of countries are capitalistic in nature, where it is more from the concept of how monetization can be better. So data, how it can be monetized more. So then you are looking at that, and then you are looking at this. So for both the things to come, the socialist economy has to protect itself very much.
Right. Now there's this perspective of, data trusts, data fiduciaries. it's a relevant conversation. Do you think India can sort of shape this conversation going forward?
Just recently, the Competition Commission of India is already in talks with the ministry for a common MOU on how the DPDP can be implemented, so that any crossing which happens with respect to data aspects between the CCI and the DPDP Act, all of that is completely kept black and white separately. The Data Protection Act initially had the concept, the bill stage had a concept of a data trust score, which meant that based on the level of compliance, the nature of compliance, and the data security that they're deploying, every organization would be accorded a score which was displayed on the Data Protection Authority's page. If that score would fluctuate, it's like a Sensex. The share prices, the market, the data, the trust in the market, all of it would fluctuate. Obviously, organizations didn't like it. That part of the version never came into the final act. Whether or not that part exists, but the presence of an act, the presence of putting in the act responsibility in the data fiduciaries, creating that data trust between a data subject and a data fiduciary about the usage of data and its extraterritorial application. Our act is only not talking about individuals. It obviously talks about individuals in India whose data we're talking about, citizens of India. But we are also talking about companies outside India who are going ahead and processing data, whether sitting inside or outside the country. Indian companies processing data within the country. Companies having their employee data. Now, whether it's a foreign company, Indian company, irrespective, if it's Indian data, it is data, and processing that data, whether it's HR data, any other form of data, we are encompassing everything together.
Lastly, how do we make digital systems fair for everyone? What are your thoughts on that?
No system is going to be fair for everyone, believe me. What tends to happen is, see, there are different business models that work all across the globe. We have different countries working with different mind processes, different thought processes of economies. And it cannot be fair for all. That's actually the reality of life. We may think that, we are looking at fairness. So let's say if we go ahead, a lot of foreign companies are not looking at the DPDP Act as also fair. When the concept of data sovereignty, wherein it was being discussed that, Indian data should be kept within India. Indian data should have backup within India. There should be, restriction of transfer of data. Now, after I think the geopolitical scenarios, a lot of individuals who were first opposing this would have realized why it is so important that there are certain barriers to data also which are created. So everybody is not going to like it. But you cannot be like Rajma Chawal that everybody is going to love it.
Right.
Eventually, it is about your national security. It is about safeguarding your Indian businesses, your nation. So simply, you can't be Rajma Chawal, which is liked by everybody in this planet.
Right. On that note, Advocate Bhasin, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a real pleasure having you. Thank you.
Same here. Thank you.